The Chargers have been making a ton of moves recently in these past few days, and just late last night, they made a trade to go out and get their backup quarterback. So thank God that we're not going to have to suffer through Easton Stick if Justin Herbert is injured, but it's a pretty good trade in my opinion, and there's also some other news to talk about, but let's get right into this new quarterback because they made a trade for Taylor Heinicke from the Falcons. And this is definitely, I think, in my opinion, a huge upgrade over Easton Stick. So if Justin Herbert does miss any time, I would expect that Taylor Heinicke can at least keep the offense afloat, like enough to the point where he isn't going to hold back the coaches in terms of what they can call from their playbook. And he also is not going to be going out there and throwing hospital balls to guys like Hayden Hurst. So hopefully Hayden Hurst can stay healthy if Justin Herbert is not going to be throwing him balls, because that pass with Easton Stick, man, that was rough to see. But Taylor Heinicke is actually way more accurate than Easton Stick, which isn't like a big bar to pass, but he also has some mobility to his game, and that's probably the best part of Easton Stick's game. So we're not losing any of that mobile aspect at the quarterback position with Taylor Heinicke. And we all remember that game against Tampa, Commanders against Tampa Bay in 2021, where he scrambled out to that left side and then dove to get into the end zone. That was a great play. That's probably the biggest play of his entire career. But Taylor Heinicke, he is an older quarterback, okay? He's 31 years old, but this isn't a move for like the future of the team. This is a move for the backup spot right now because it needed to be secured right now going into the season until they can find an option that they really like maybe in the draft or an undrafted free agency or a cheap veteran in free agency that they can sign to a longer term deal. His contract ends after this season, but I imagine like if he does impress the coaches in practices or even in the games, if he does end up playing and Justin Herbert doesn't, then they'll bring him back for a multi-year deal. So we're just going to have to see with Taylor Heinicke. This isn't the quarterback that I was hoping for, but Taylor Heinicke does have some swag to his game. I'm going to be honest with you. He's got that confidence, and I love to see that. And he played the most of his snaps in 2021, also in 2022 in Washington. And if he is your starting quarterback, then, you know, that's probably not a great quarterback room. But if he is your backup quarterback, then you're in a pretty good spot. And the thing that I like about this trade is that Joe Ortiz knew that the backup quarterback spot on this roster was a problem. And instead of just banking on the health of Justin Herbert and hoping that we're never going to have to see that backup quarterback play, so it shouldn't be that much of an issue, he actually just went out and fixed the issue by making this trade. And all that he had to give up in this trade was a conditional 6th round pick that is based off of playing time. So the less that he sees the field, the less draft capital the Chargers are going to have to give up to the Falcons in this trade, which, I mean, really, that's just a really smart move by Joe Ortiz. He's securing the backup spot for this year, maybe for a couple years after that, because they could sign him to a multi-year deal after the season if they do like what they see from him, like I said, in practices and things like that, hopefully not in the games, but securing that backup spot while covering his butt just in case Taylor Heinicke never sees the field, so that he's basically going to give up nothing in this trade if Taylor Heinicke is never called upon. Now, the last part of this trade that we need to talk about, and it's probably going to be upsetting to some of you guys based off the comments that I've been getting, but somebody needs to be released from the final 53-man roster in order to make room for Taylor Heinicke. So naturally, you're probably thinking right now, okay, it's just going to be Easton Stick. Let's cut Easton Stick, and then we can have this, 2 quarterbacks in the QB room. But Tony Jefferson was the one that was released, and he is expected to be back on the practice squad after clearing waivers, which I'm pretty sure that he will, because, just a year ago he was retired. No team wanted him, so hopefully still no team wants him, and he's just going to be on the practice squad. But I do think that it's interesting that they waived Tony Jefferson over waiving Jarrett Patterson, because they have 5 running backs on the roster right now, because they did just go out and get Hassan Haskins off of waivers, who's more of a special teams guy, but still another running back on the roster. And they waived both Tony Jefferson and JT Woods rather than anybody in that running back room. And then they did go out and trade for Elijah Molden as well. So I guess it's not like that DB room is really depleted or anything. Like, I actually think it got better by adding Elijah Molden and then, taking away JT Woods. It's kind of like addition by subtraction. And then also we finally have the compensation update for that Elijah Molden trade. It was a 7th round pick in 2026. So that's not this next draft. That's the year after that, a 7th in that draft, which, we're going to be getting comp picks and things like that. So this is basically like free. This is free pickings right here. Elijah Molden for nothing, basically, just a sack of peanuts in 2 years. And this could end up being a steal. If Elijah Molden makes even one play, then, I think it's a good trade. But a lot of fans really liked Tony Jefferson. And, a lot of you guys were even getting mad at me when I suggested that they could waive Tony Jefferson for some other guys. Like Elijah Molden. I suggested they could waive him or Jarrett Patterson. I am surprised that Jarrett Patterson is still on this roster with these 5 running backs. I think if anybody is going to get released for the sake of somebody else getting onto this roster at any point this season, it would be Jarrett Patterson first, because I just don't think they're going to be running or rolling into this year and the entirety of the year with 5 running backs on the roster. I know they use a lot of running backs, but you can call guys up from the practice squad, and they're going to be calling guys up and down all the time. That's going to be happening with Tony Jefferson. It's going to be happening with probably JT Woods as well, Hassan Haskins, maybe Jarrett Patterson, obviously. But then at some point, I would expect possibly Easton Stick to be waived once Taylor Heinicke gets up to speed, because the reason that Easton Stick is still on this roster and he's not cut or waived yet is because Taylor Heinicke just got into this. He's probably not even at the Chargers facility yet. I was at the Chargers facility before Taylor Heinicke, but he is probably Joe Ortiz is probably waiting for Taylor Heinicke to get the playbook in his hands and get totally comfortable with it, so that he's not going to be out there playing, almost as bad as Easton Stick, because he doesn't know the playbook. He wants to keep Easton Stick on this roster until Taylor Heinicke is up to speed, so that if he is called upon, then Taylor Heinicke isn't going to be going out there and, throwing bad balls. So this roster, we're kind of seeing right now with Joe Ortiz, it's a really fluid thing, all right? There's always going to be guys coming in and coming out. Basically every week, it feels like that's how this is just going to be. So if your favorite guy gets cut, like if your favorite guy is Tony Jefferson, you're freaking out because you loved him, he's going to be on the practice squad. It's not like he's not going to play this season. I can almost assure you that he's going to be called up at some point during the year, just like a couple other guys, and it's going to be, a constantly evolving roster. That's how Joe Ortiz is going to be doing things, and we've already seen a lot of trades. We've seen more trades in these past 2 or 3 weeks than we have in the entire Tom Telesco era through training camp and prior to week 1. I'm pretty sure, I don't think I remember a single trade that Tom Telesco made during training camp. Maybe he made one. I think it was Scott Lissamore from the Cowboys. And now that I'm thinking about it, they actually didn't cut anybody yet from that Elijah Molden trade. So they're going to have to cut one more guy. I would expect it to be Jarrett Patterson, or they already cut Tony Jefferson and JT Woods. So yeah, it's not going to be another DB. Probably Jarrett Patterson. Don't think it's going to be Easton Stick this early on for, the reasons that I've said, but probably Jarrett Patterson. But overall, all of these moves, I'm on board with every single one of them. And that is basically everything that you need to know from the Chargers today. And if you did not see my video yesterday, then you can click right here.